Hey, friends, welcome back to the Pouring Over Books podcast. I am LaShawn, your host, and woo, friends, it has been a month. I can tell you honestly that I am very, very grateful for the escapes that books have given me from the real world this month. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. Anywho, this January has been the longest month of my life, it seems. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the books I read in January of 2025, even though it is Tuesday and we still have, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days left. Mainly because I'm going to finish Onyx Storm by Friday, and I don't believe I'll start or finish any others. So I'm just going to go ahead and include it and say I read 11 books in January. All in all, my average book, took me about 5 days to read, which is slower than normal for me. But I said this year I wanted to take my time and enjoy books instead of just speed reading through all of them. Because sometimes I will read a book really quickly, especially romance books, and frankly not remember the details of it after about a day. I'm like, whatever. So I've been reading, according to Storygraph, I've been reading at a medium pace. My average page number of the books was 300 to 499 pages. I read all fiction genres right now. Romance is heading up, fantasy is second, and contemporary is third. But yeah, 44% of my books were print. 33% were digital, and 22% of the books I read were in audio version. So I just find the stats interesting in Storygraph. That's why I love Storygraph and why I have moved over. I will do a more in-depth episode later on about the differences and what I like about each of them and why I think I'm going to stick with Storygraph because I love the stats. I am a numbers girl. So like my star ratings this month were an average of 3.64. I found all of that interesting. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and say that I read 11 books in January because I'm going to finish Onyx Storm. I thought about talking about them all, but frankly, there are only 5 I really want to talk about here. So let's get into it. The first book I finished this year was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Now, I avoided the hype around this book all last year. I saw it on every Bookstagrammer's page that I trust. I saw it on BookTok, which made me not trust it because I've been burned by BookTok many, many times. So I never, hardly ever take any of their recommendations anymore. And I was refusing to give in. I was just going to ignore it. Even when I heard she got traditionally published and they were re-releasing it and that pushed back the second book, I was still like, mm-mm. Plus, it looks like it's going to be a series. And, had this aversion last year of starting series because I had been burned by Sarah J. Maas. Still waiting on that next book, girl. Anywho, I digress. But anyway, I had to drive my mother home to Alabama, and on the way back, I listened to the first 3 chapters of this book, and by the time I got home, I was hooked. Had gotten this book, and I should have known I was going to get it. I'd gotten this book because it was on sale on Audible when Audible was having their Christmas sale. And I had heard that the only audio version was on Audible. And so it was real cheap. So I was like, well, one day I might. Oh, trying to fool myself. So I went ahead and got it. And like I said, by the time I got home, I went ahead and got the Kindle version also because, sometimes the Audible is not fast enough. Anywho, let's tell you what it's about. An extraordinary human girl meets a grumpy fey male and they hate each other. I mean, it's like the premise of almost a lot of our romantasy books these days. But this was a good enemies to lovers book. Well, you think it's enemies to lovers. I didn't even know why I was reading it because I was like, okay, this is typical. What is going to be different? And then, friends, I loved Fisher. Even when he was grumpy, even when he was obviously fighting his feelings when he knew. And Sarah's, I love a feisty female character. I love that she wasn't the typical, I hate everyone and I know everything. And even though I'm stupid and I'm lucky to jump into situations type of character, she actually made sense. She actually had reasons behind everything she did that made sense. And I loved that there was no third act misunderstanding trope. It was just story moving along with plot twists and world building and a few surprises that made complete sense when revealed. Even the side characters were top tier in this book. I am so happy that I gave in and read this, and I cannot wait to read the next book for more adventures with the whole crew later this year. I mean, it ended on not a cliffhanger, but it had enough closure and enough leading you to the next story that was, she does an excellent job. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. Yes. My second book that I want to talk about is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. Let's just get this out of the way and say I love Adrienne Young and will pick up basically anything she writes. That being said, this book was different from her usual. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, as usual, Adrienne Young provided us with a beautifully atmospheric book. I always feel like I'm immersed in the landscape and the towns and the feelings of our characters. And honestly, this one was no different. This one was more part murder mystery slash thriller than romance. Fade to black spice here only. But that was not a bad thing. This started off really slow for me, but picked up about midway, and before I knew it, I was almost at the end. I suspected who our villain was, but not everything, and I'll leave it at that so I don't spoil it. That being said, the ending was satisfying, but a little flat, I guess, for me. I don't know if I wanted more or what, but yeah, I wanted more. Wanted more. All in all, I enjoyed it. It was beautifully written, almost lyrical, I can say, like most of her books are. But this book was not my favorite of hers, and that's frankly okay. I still give it a solid 4. Now, moving on to the third book I want to discuss today, which is Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is the author of the runaway hit Black Cake, the one that was turned into a Hulu series. So I was eager to read this one because, everyone loved her last book so much. I liked it too. Can't remember what rating I gave it the first time. I mean, it didn't bowl me over, but it was good. This is, of course, a beautifully written story. Good Dirt is the story of the Freemans, a Black family that can trace their roots back 400 years to a jar that has been passed down from generation to generation. Abby was just a child when she watches her brother Baz get killed in a home invasion, and the jar is broken. We fast forward, and our story starts as Abby has fled to France after being left at the altar. Friends, I really, really wanted to love this book. I think for me, I truly dislike the back and forth between timelines and this book. That was this book. I know it's a plot device, it's a literary device. I do not like it. It is rarely done well. And it is rare that it is done seamlessly, and this was not it. At times, there were too many characters to keep up with, and at times, there were certain aspects of the story that had me asking, why is this even relevant? Friends, seriously. There was a lot of miscommunication, and things that were supposed to be big revelations just fell flat to me. But I still couldn't put this book down. Like, I had to know what happened. I kept reading. So I'm going to give it a 3.75 out of 5. So yeah. And let's see. My fourth book is Once Smitten, Twice Shy by Chloe Elise. I couldn't wait to get my hands on this book. I got an ARC, and an ARC is an advanced reader copy. And it was so good. So good. This is the third book in the Wilmot series. Will and Jules agreed to practice date after she is getting over heartbreak, and he is trying to learn that he deserves romance in his life. I've decided that I like practice dating more than I like fake romance or fake relationship, because this just naturally led to one of the most romantic, sweetest love stories ever. And I can say I love Chloe Elise just for that reason, because she is just so good at just bringing the characters together and it's just romantic. I love Juliet and Will. One thing that this author does so well is the neurodivergence and chronic illness representations in her books. And this one was no exception. Like, the female main character, she had celiac disease, and she had joint issues. and then Will was neurodivergent. This was my favorite book of the series. I'm going to be honest and say I DNF'd the first two. So yes, 3.75 out of 5. Loved. And the fifth book I'm going to talk about is Iron Flame Friends. Yes, I am late to the party, but we're going to talk about it. I reread Fourth Wing to catch up because I had no plans to read this book or Onyx Storm, but the internet cannot keep secrets and cannot keep its mouth shut. So I was beginning to get spoiled. So I decided to just go ahead and give into the hype because literally I would open up a video and people would just start talking, no warning, no nothing. And I was like, oh, see, I can't do this, which is why I've been staying off the internet, out of book threads, out of Bookstagram, and I have not even been on TikTok because of this. So side note here, the release of Onyx Storm reminded me of old school midnight release parties for Harry Potter. Yes, I am old enough that I went to those. The last 3 books of that series had this same feel. I miss that part of the book loving world where you are surrounded by people eager to get their hands on a new book. It is just awesome. And I felt that because I went to a store that shall not be named to get their special edition. And I was saying to myself, oh, I'm just going to get there when they open so I can get back home, take my son to school. So I'm just going to go over here. And actually there was snow. So I didn't have to take him to school, but I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can just be over there when the store opens. I got there and there was a line, y'all. People were dressed in dragon costumes. It was amazing. And it was amazing how we all rushed to the book section to get our hands on the special edition. I had to tell the girl beside me, like, girl, no, don't get that. That's the regular one. Get this one. That's the special edition. It was lovely. It was great. Anyway, let's get to Iron Flame. Before I read this book, I've heard a lot of people say that it wasn't as good as the first one. And that they were conflicted about whether they could continue the series. And they were all like, it was a fluke, and then they didn't like the way this one went. I went into this book expecting a sophomore slump because of that, and I was happily surprised. My goodness. I must be one of the few people who loves battle scenes and all the little details you got to pay attention to because they will show up in future books, and I knew that because of all the little details I noticed on my reread of Fourth Wing that showed up in this book, and I could remember the little details, and I was like, So I always felt like the first book just kept going and going. So when this one did the same thing, but with more detail and more mundane stuff and more character growth, I personally was a happy camper. I mean, happy. Since I don't believe in giving spoilers, even though this book is over a year old, I'll just say that I love the reveals and the cliffhangers, and I cannot wait to start Onyx Storm later on today. I give Violet and Zayden and their merry band of writers a solid 4 out of 5, which is, I think, what I gave the first book. I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed the ride. And at this point, I'm not the type of reader that's going to always be looking at the writing, and unless the writing is horrible and like there are, accidents and stuff don't make sense, or the writing is just grammatically bad, I'm not the one who you should listen to give you that. I am not that person. I read everything and I enjoy a good romp / escapism that this whole series is going to provide me. There are people who, if you want analysis, there are whole podcasts for that, and I can even direct you to them because they do an excellent job. And after I finish reading all the books, I will go over and see what they're talking about. Anyway, so those are my top 5 that I read in January of 2025. I found that this month, making a list of the books that I wanted to read, I really stuck with that. I did buy other books, but didn't read them. There are 2 books that I read that were not originally on my to be read list. But other than that, I stuck to it, and I'm proud of myself for that because usually I will deviate all the way off. But having a list of books to read really did help me. There's one book that I didn't finish. I did not finish Death of the Author, but I was reading it as an arc on my Kindle. I liked it. I was like on chapter 4. I went ahead and bought the hardback because sometimes to me, books go better in certain formats for me. And I think that one will go better for me in a hardback. So anyway, next month, I'm going to do the same thing I did this month and lay out what my TBR is and stick to that. I was very efficient this month and I was very proud of myself. But anyway, now I have got a special part, a special introduction, a special section of the podcast that I want to introduce today. I'm going to be doing deep dive romance episodes since romance is close to my heart. I love it. And frankly, there is a romance novel for everyone. And I want to share that knowledge with my friend Emily. So this next session is me and Emily talking about our books that we are most anticipating in the romance genre for 2025. Keep listening, friends. Okay, so gentle listeners, I know you are just used to hearing my voice, but one of the things I want to do this season of the podcast is to bring in contributors who have their own experiences in areas that I love to talk about. And so today I want to introduce you to Emily. Emily is a real bookstagrammer. I just play at it, who shares her love for romance over on IG at with a book and tea. So welcome, Emily. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. I don't know about how real of a bookstagrammer I am, but I try, I dabble, I pretend, and I love it. Mostly I just love reading and I like to just share it. And a little bit about myself that's not book is I'm a wife, I'm a mom, full-time, at home, homeschool, all that jazz. But I love reading. I probably read too much. We talk about that all the time. And then
There's no such thing. I'm telling you, it's no such thing.
Oh, well, sometimes it's a lot. And it isn't probably 99% romance because what's better than just a cute love story?
Exactly. I always tell people it's the perfect escape when they don't get it. So, I mean,
when you're home all the time and you got 2 kids under the age of 6, you need an escape every now and then. You need to have some adult talking about some adult things, not toddler things, and all that nonsense.
Toddlers are so special.
They are.
I do not miss that age, though. Not at all.
No, it has a time and a place, and it is.
It does. But then you get to the age, the gap I'm at right now, the teenager, and you're like, I miss it when they were compliant and they hung all over me. That's what I miss.
Compliant. Not sure I've ever described
compliant. Toddlers are actually, you know what I told a friend one time, teenagers are just tall toddlers. They really are. So
they got louder mouth.
And taller, and they think they know more.
Bigger vocabulary.
Yes, they express themselves better. Yes. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing is going to shift this part of the episode, of course, to romance, one of our favorite genres. Basically, like we kept saying, go-to comfort. So since it's January, we are going to discuss the romance books we are looking forward to in 2025. So, Emily, I'll let you start. What is the first book you are looking forward to?
I think my top book that I'm looking forward to is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry.
Yes. I only know about this because you told me.
Yes, Devney Perry is my girl. And anything she writes it's just perfect. And I love that she has more to her books than just romance. It's not just about 2 people falling in love. There's like a mystery usually or something crazy is happening in this town. But this is a shift for her. She is moving into the fantasy realm, which
I was like, we both love fantasy too. So I was like, really?
Yes. So I worry a little bit when people start shifting. It makes me a little nervous.
I know, but Ali Hazelwood did a good job when she shifted last year. So.
And Devney Perry, I just have a feeling she's going to do good. So we're going to see. It is on her blurb. It says it's supposed to be a Witcher meets Cinderella type book.
I love The Witcher. Oh.
Yes. And it's about like monsters, like that kind of fantasy. So definitely going to be interesting to see how she does it. For sure.
Okay. All right.
That's coming out in May. I think the end of May. I don't think she has like an actual release date or anything yet. So
Okay, so I'm gonna put it on my calendar to look forward to. All right. So the first book that I'm looking forward to comes out in March. Is Wild Side by Elsie Silver. Now, Elsie Silver is my, just like you're Devney. Elsie Silver is my go-to romance author. I don't think I've ever not read a book of hers that I didn't like. I mean, wait, there was that one that I didn't finish because I hated the premise. She was a virgin who was really into things she shouldn't have been as a virgin, but I digress. It just wasn't realistic. And I wasn't feeling it. Anyway, but Wild Side is the third book in the Rose Hill series. It's Small Town, which is, one of my faves. And our two main characters marry to keep her nephew safe, I think.
Oh, okay.
I love these series because you get to know the characters who are going to be featured in all of the books before their actual book. So it's like meeting up with an old friend and see what they're getting up to. So I'm kind of excited about that.
She's a classic. I've read her other series, The Chestnut. Is it Chestnut? Farms or something like that?
Yeah, that one.
I have not started this series. I know you're like always telling me because isn't it Wild Side or Wild Eyes?
Yes, Wild Eyes. Oh, geez, now I don't remember. I just saw it in the bookstore.
Wild Love. Wild Love.
Like
Wild Eyes.
Yes, and the last
I did read Wild Eyes. That was the one about the pop star.
Yes, that was good.
Was really
the last one was really good. It was Single Dad.
That's mine. That's my
yes. That's the one you read. Yeah, that's the one you read.
Yeah, that's one I read. Yeah,
but the one before that one was good too. The first one in the series. Grumpy Sunshine. So it was that was, but like friends, to lovers, enemies, but they couldn't decide what they were. But anyway, it was good. Yeah. So, what is your next book?
One that's coming out pretty soon, I think, would probably be my other top go-to girl is Maggie Gates. I love what she writes. She has like emotional baggage. I don't want to say trauma, but everyone got like some kind of emotional baggage they're coming with, and she always just writes like real life stuff. And so there's a 7 of Hearts, which is a kind of a standalone that's attached to one of her other series, but it's not really a part of that series because that
you can read it without reading the rest.
Overarching plot thing. So this is just a standalone. But this is a little curveball for us because there is a unexpected pregnancy in the book, and I'm actually excited about it. And what we hate, and so it's crazy that I'm excited about it. I think just because it's Maggie, and she always does.
So you think she'll do it right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, this is like they're kind of like they've been friends their whole lives, and she's always had a crush on him. It's like an older brother's best friend type situation. So it's not just like two strangers all of a sudden getting pregnant.
Okay.
It's friends. There's been some lingering emotions in the past. And it's Maggie, so she's got to do it well.
Okay. All right. My second book is going to be Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. It comes out April 1st. She is an automatic buy for me. I got a peek preview of this book, and I can't wait to read it. Her books usually have little Easter eggs that connect previous characters from previous books in some way. So I'm interested to see how these two characters fit in. But her books always lean towards what I call the heavy side of romance. So there's a lightheartedness there, of course, and you're going to get your happily ever after. It might not be conventional, but they're usually really realistic, and there's something hard that keeps our characters apart. Like not just something frivolous like misunderstanding or miscommunication. It's like some real life ish that is keeping them apart. So, and it's usually really emotional, really deep, and I just love them. And it just has, it's like a story that has romance thrown in it rather than a romance with a plot, So I usually enjoy her books. So
I've actually never read an Abby Jimenez book. It feels crazy as a romance person to say that out loud, but I have never.
Oh my God. I will have to fix that at a later date.
People love her, so I can see that it's probably going to be a big one because people love her.
Yeah. Yes. It's like trauma, but not,
We love that, don't we?
We love that. So,
trauma bonding.
What's your next one?
Probably Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. That's her new
I'm
one.
looking forward to that one. Yeah.
I love her.
I'm so mad I couldn't get an art.
I know. Yeah. I
So
didn't
bad.
even see that, but they, you know that Love Hypothesis is my like comfort book. I love that book. I love a woman in STEM. Okay.
Yes.
A strong, smart, capable woman.
And
And so I think this one, they're both athletes, and they're both
just like different. So that's why I'm curious.
And like diver, which is interesting. But I think there's also STEM. She's a STEM woman as well. That's coming out at the beginning of February, so we only got like a week.
I know, and I still have to finish 2 books before that. 3 actually, but moving on.
I just got 2 arcs that I'm getting next week, so I was like, this is really cramping my time.
Yeah, it's cramping my time. Arcs that I haven't read yet. I'm like, oh well, we'll just be late.
Aren't they always?
My next book is called If Tomorrow Never Comes by Allison Ashley.
Okay.
It comes out April 1st. I've never read anything by this person. I don't even know if this is her first book, second book. I don't know.
I've never heard of it.
You know how you see those lists for best books of 2025? This one kept popping up.
Okay.
And then I think I saw it in a copy of Publishers Weekly or somebody's Bookstagram or something. And I was like, okay, so what is this about? Because, I'm tired of seeing it. So it's about a girl, her name is Elliot, who decides to live it up on the eve of her stem cell transplant. Because she has leukemia.
Okay.
She meets Jamie on this night where she's living it up. They have great chemistry. It's magic. And of course, the evening ends and they never expect to see each other again.
Of course.
But of course, 1 year later, with her cancer in remission, she meets the woman who donated her stem cell to that gave her second chance at life. And who is her boyfriend?
No.
But Elliot. So I'm like, every time I read the description, I keep hearing that song, Ironic by Alanis Morissette, where she said, meeting the man of your dreams and then meeting his beautiful wife. I'm like, oh God. So I just want to read it just because I just need to see how this triangle goes. I'm usually not into love triangles as a trope, but
sounds messy.
Yes, it sounds emotionally messy.
Messy can be great, but messy can be bad.
So I'm like, this is going to pull at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
What's your next?
Let's see. Probably like smaller authors I've just finished a series by Kristen Proby. Proby. I can never pronounce these names. And she writes small town, does the run-of-the-mill romance. But she has a new one coming out, which is When We Burn. And I love it because the main guy is a firefighter. And if you know my husband is a firefighter. I'm sorry, but firefighters are very underrepresented in this romance realm. So I'm excited to see it. I loved her series. I only worry about this new series because she has all 6 of the series books coming out this year. Or at least 5 of them, I'm pretty sure. So that's a lot. So I worry about it, but I'm going to let Kristen prove that she can do this because in her. But it was really good. The last one was like brothers, small town. They owned a ranch, that stuff.
Yeah.
This one is just a firefighter, and I'm pretty sure there's a single parent involved. So we love that.
You
always love that. Give me a firefighter and a single dad. Man, I can do that.
Okay, let me see. My next book, that's a lot of good books coming out in April. Because this one also comes out April 1st. It's called No Ordinary Love by Maya Ariel. It's basically a PR partnership it's fake dating or fake romance. A PR partnership between a pop superstar and a pro athlete bad boy turns into something more. So it's basically, your normal romance novel. I kept seeing it on Instagram.
Taylor and Travis vibes. Huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think
you hit that. You're like, yeah, whatever.
I know, and I was like, you had to bring her.
I'm Swiftie through and through. So give me a Taylor Travis book. Let's go.
I was like, okay. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, we'll see. I kept, how to me, I don't do book talk because to me, which we can talk about at another time, book talk tends to be a little toxic for me. So I tend to stick to Bookstagram.
They also love some books, and sometimes I read them and I'm like,
yes. And plus I've been burned. I've been burned way too many times over on Book Talk.
Absolutely.
So I have like my favorites on Bookstagram that if they say it sounds interesting, I'm like, okay. Or if they say it's good,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll read that. I'll read
Yeah.
that. They haven't steered me wrong 95% of the time, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's my next to last pick. So what's
We're
your
a little picky on Bookstagram. A little more picky than Book Talk. Book
Yeah,
Talk, they love
exactly.
everything. You throw it at them and they love it.
Mm-hmm.
My next one will be The Hermit by Michelle Hurd. Michelle Hurd is my Mafia girl. She writes Mafia series. You know, next to Firefighter Single Dad, I love equally my Mafia romances. Okay, give me a bad boy that is gonna literally kill someone if they look at me. Okay, so
Not morally gray, just gray. Okay.
yes. No, we're not the morally
They're
black.
black.
You know,
They're
you're
black.
going
Yeah,
completely
they're completely black. Okay.
actually killing people. So she writes some spicy stuff. It gets a little dicey and we love it. And I read her other series and it was amazing and it went through all different mafia heads. And so this is her new series, brand new world, brand new series. I'm so excited for it. So that one comes out. I don't have a date. So soon. I think it's like March or May. Somewhere there, March or May.
Everything is the beginning of the year. I couldn't find anything good coming out towards the end, but
yeah, I don't think people have put them out yet.
No, I don't think so either. Let me see. My next one is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry.
Classic.
April 22nd.
Okay.
Like Abby Jimenez, Emily is a go-to buy for me. Her books to me scream summer. It means that I'm going to be reading her book by someone's pool on the beach or on a road trip somewhere, you know.
Let's do it.
It's not that they're not the best books. They're not excellent. They're actually good. I like the fact that, again, it's not straight traditional, you know, boy meets girl. It's usually some kind of conflict. I like my romance with a conflict.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what this one is about. Just that I would read it.
I hadn't heard of it until I saw it on your list. So
the blurb said, I did write down what the blurb said. It says 2 writers compete for a chance to tell a larger than life story of a woman with more than a couple of plot twists up her sleeve. It almost gives me, what was that book by V.H. Schwab? The one about the lady who, the many lives of somebody. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It gives me those vibes.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll see. But with romance,
it's like you said. We often say to each other that it can be great, but it doesn't wow us. And rarely do we get that romance where it's got that extra little twist where you're like, wow, that was unlike anything I've ever read.
Right.
But it's going to be great.
I love Emily Henry, and her last book was good, but it wasn't, you know, like I was like, oh my God, this is so good. No, it was just good. It was.
I think the last one I read of hers was Book Lovers. I don't think I read anything after that. And I liked Book Lovers, but I did. And then I heard a lot of ups and downs about, I think, Happy Place. And
Happy Place was different. That was why it wasn't happy.
Happy. There was no Happy Place.
There was no Happy Place. It was a lie.
I just stop after that. If I hear some rumblings, I'm like, okay, I'm out. I ain't got
it was actually, Book Lovers is one of my favorites of hers. I think it might be because it was books. They're both into
probably.
So anyway, so what's your next one?
My next one is just kind of a passion project too. Like, I work with an author. Her name's Hollie Luckie, and I have betaed for her since her first novel, which came out 2 years ago, and then she just put out a Christmas novella. So her second book in the series is Why We Break, and it's just a small town vibes. This one's different because it is a enemies to lovers, but they have a past where they had a past, you know, like 7 years ago. And so they're trying to figure out, there's some really heavy topics that she's discussing in this one. So there's a jumping back and forth between 7 years ago and present, and they're trying to figure out these differences. And so it's kind of like a friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, past romance, second chance, all wrapped up into one messy package. But there's found family, there's Margarita Mondays, there's, you know, all the we love. So it's gonna be great. That one's coming out soon. I think March. I don't have the date, but soon.
And my last book is King of Envy by Anna Hung. comes out April 29th. Now, this is her 5th book in the Kings of Sin series. I will go ahead and admit that I have never read the first one, that I DNF'd the second one, loved the third, loved the third book, adored the fourth, but have been looking forward to this book, the main male character in this book.
Why is it always like that?
I don't know, but it pissed me off. We had to wait until the last book for him. I didn't even know. I didn't know if she was gonna give him a book.
That's hard.
But he kept reappearing, so I was like, "Oh, he's gonna get a book." These are what they call billionaire romances. You know, everyone's a billionaire. I do like that most of the time there is a good plot with her book, but not all of them. But this series, yes, the sexy times are very sexy.
Okay, all right.
Leaning towards smutty.
Okay, we can get behind that. We love a good smut.
But not really, you know, because maybe it's really only people always say, "Oh, it's smutty," and I'm like, really, it's only 5% of the book, but it's a good, it's good part that we have.
I love when someone says it's smutty and you're like, oh, that's smutty.
I'm like, it's like they called Birthwing smutty, and I'm like, literally, they had sex for maybe 10 pages out of a 400-page book. It's like a 400-page book. There are 10 pages where there's actual sex on the page. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
we can talk about the distinction later.
Okay.
Anyway, I have been looking forward, like I said, since about book 3. When I discovered who the female was going to be, I kept wondering when she was going to get her own book. And then I knew in the last book that it was her and him. So we'll see.
My thing about her is I read Twisted Hate. I think that's in her other series.
Yes.
I hated it.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying I
never
like that series. I dislike that series.
Okay. I never went back. I couldn't. You burned
I don't think I even realized this was the same author.
Okay.
Which is the only reason why I picked it up.
I've heard great things about the King series. I hear it all the time.
Like I said, I DNF'd one, hated another, but still came back. Which said something.
Always, the last one.
I was like, oh, but the last two were excellent. So this one, I'm like, okay.
Maybe I'll add it in. Think about it.
Give her one more chance because I'm just hoping she does not mess it up. Like, please don't. Okay. All right. Did we have one more?
I have one more, which is our joint. Well, it's one that we are joint excited about. Is Rewind It Back by Liz.
Yes.
Finally, can we get an amen? We're finally getting Rio.
Even though I really loved the last one because I had been looking forward to seeing how that was going to work out.
Oh my gosh.
But I really want Rio because Rio is always complaining that everyone is.
We fell in love with him. Chapter 1 of book 1.
Yes. We wanted Rio.
Once again, we're waiting till the end. 2 years later, finally getting our guy. So, I'm so excited. May 20th. So we got to wait a little bit. But May 10th, that one's coming out. So excited.
All right. Okay. And the last book on my list is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan.
Okay.
Comes out May 13th. This is honestly my most anticipated book of the year, other than if Sarah J. Maas decided to put out a book and put us out of misery. I know I'm in dream world, but hey. This is the 3rd book in the Skyland series, and we are finally getting sassy, saucy. I never want kids. I'm grown and rich and take care of myself. Hendrik. Okay. We stand for Hendrik. I would sell my left pinky for an advanced copy of this book. I am putting it out there in the universe. Please.
I will manifest that for you. I've never read any of her books.
Emily.
I know.
This is a shame.
I feel like I'm losing my expert status here.
It is. How can I put it? It's like those, she writes the romance novels where there's always extra. There's more to the story than just the romance, which is what I appreciate about her.
Love that.
Plus, I just really want to know Hendrix. That's my girl. All the other books, I've been wanting her story.
We love a good grown woman,
exactly. She's grown. She's grown.
Grown. Okay, we love that.
We love that. Okay, friends, that is it. Okay, thank you, Emily, for joining us today. Thank you, friends, in advance for listening. And remember that it helps if you leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. It helps us find more book friends. Okay, talk to you next week. Bye.